What is climate change, global warming, and greenhouse gases? First, it's the greenhouse gases that we emit through our industry, to our consumption. Every person in industrialized country, so most of you watching, emit about 15 tons of CO2e, so CO2 or equivalent of greenhouse gases. And these greenhouse gases keep the heat of the planet. Usually the sun shines on the planet, some is reflected back out into outer space, some stays in the atmosphere. And the more greenhouse gas we have, the more this temperature stays. Now, there's this common argument that it's normal for the Earth to go through phases where it's hotter and colder. Yes. And, the tendency is to say every 20,000 years. Actually, it's more complex than that. There's a cycle that is every 20,000 years. There's a cycle that is every 41,000 years, and another cycle about every 100,000 years. And all of these cycles combine together, and when there's two highs that join, they accumulate, sometimes they multiply. So the temperature varies, but over such a large period of time that humanity or species, all species before humanity was any species, they had time to adapt, to move, to migrate. For humans, what it means is if we had a warning of 10,000 years to say the water would rise a meter, or the water would invade that area, or a cataclysm would come, of course we would have time to adapt, to rebuild elsewhere, to move. But the carbon emissions and carbon equivalent emissions and the greenhouse gases have kept the heat to the point that we've done in 50 years what should have been done in about 20,000 years. Like an entire cycle, the last 10,000 years of raise of that 20,000 year cycle, we've done it in 50 years. And we're still increasing. We're on the brink of crossing even where the natural cycle would have bring us. So it's even warmer. So greenhouse gases is what is emitted through all the various industries, agriculture, manufacturing, construction, transportation, and so many more, that we're just emitting them. And it's no one's fault. At least it's not our fault, the consumers. It's not our fault, the people, because we were given that world. We were given that technology. We were put in the situation where if we want to have a coffee, we have to transport it. Someone has to go and, do some torrefaction that will burn it. The cup that is built, the car we use or the vehicle we use, even the buses, any kind of transportation we use to go get the coffee, it all emits carbon. So non-industrialized countries are about that 7 to 9 tons per individual, even from birth, because the services provided to babies, the services provided to elders, it's an average. And in industrialized countries, so probably you watching, is around 15 tons of CO2e every year. People say CO2 or carbon, but it's CO2e, the proper expression we want to use now, because it's not just carbon dioxide. There's methane and nitrous oxide and various fluorides and stuff. There's many different gases, okay? We don't need to learn them. We just need to know that it's a lot of greenhouse gases. So these greenhouse gases provoke a raising of the temperature, and that changes the climate. It affects the weather system. And what it affects the weather system is that the higher temperature causes much more forest fire, causes water to rise, causes displacement of population. People who have a beachfront property more often than before get invaded. There is a similar path chart. I don't have it now. It's easy to find. You just Google. A lot of information, I'll say, you just Google it, okay? It's all there. The increase of temperature has a certain curve, and the United Nations published an increase of amount of cataclysm and catastrophes related to climate change. And they're pretty much the same. Both are like, it's getting worse, okay? So we are putting in the atmosphere about 40 billion tons of CO2e per year, but the nature can deal with most of it, which is about 38. Therefore, like the trees that are currently processing the existing flora, the ocean, the ground, the soil. Nature is processing almost the emissions we're doing every year, but not all. So that's why if we emit 40 billion tons of CO2 and nature as it is only captures 38, we're at 2 billion in excess. So over the years, we have been more excess. Now we're around at 2 billion tons of CO2 in excess every year. And total, it makes about 40 billion, we're at 39 billion something tons of excess as of now, 2025, early 2025. So let's just say 40 in a way to round it up. Because we're losing ground, we have less and less natural biodiverse forests, and the ocean is less and less capable of dealing with the excesses, with the CO2 we emit. Then we have an excess of 2 billion tons per year, and that accumulates. And now it's we knew it, but now it's proven that the more climate changes, the faster the climate changes. So the more temperature increases, the faster that increases. So it's not like an increase, it's a soft exponential increase, and it'll eventually be a curve. And that is what is the climate change, what's going on. Another thing I will add, when we put an excess, okay, so when we cross the excess of CO2 or CO2e that nature could deal with, that excess does not stay only in the atmosphere. It is absorbed by the ocean. So as we pollute the atmosphere, the ocean is polluted also because it sucks the saturation from the atmosphere, okay? In the 1800s, we had around 200 ppm of CO2e in the atmosphere, okay? So 200 parts per million of the atmosphere was carbon dioxide and the others. Now we're at 440 parts per million in the atmosphere. And so that now that we will clean the atmosphere, the excess in the ocean of CO2e will evaporate into the atmosphere. So we'll stay at 440 parts per million in the atmosphere for a while. Even if we capture more than we produce, even if we successfully reverse the curve, the heating potential of those gases will remain as long as the ocean has exhaled or transpired back into the atmosphere all that it could suck. And then cleaning that up, we'll see a lowering of the climate change effect and the heating effect of the greenhouse gases. So there's work to do, and we should do that work quickly because we're late, really late to the ballpark. Those who have not suffered from a cataclysm or a catastrophe do not realize how pressing the matter is. Those who have suffered from such cataclysm do not necessarily dispose of the finances to help the program advance. So we're trying our best to inform the world that the climate change is real, and it's something that we have to work together. But there's hope. There's so much hope. We can do it. All we have to do is finance it ourselves and stop asking others to do it. All right, let's keep going.